travelers, for people working at the airport.
Kind of speechless with it because our world is just sort of really crazy right now. We got to get it together.
It's absurd. I think it's a complete failure of government, and the government serving itself and not the people. It's driving me nuts.
Total headache, disaster, nightmare.
It's terrible. It's just terrible. I feel like the American people are being held hostage right now.
You're hearing comments there from some of the thousands of people dealing with flight delays caused by the government shutdown. We are seeing a historic number of delays and cancellations all across the country. One of the hardest hit airports is our own Reagan National. The travel nightmare coming during phase 1 of the FAA's plan to reduce flights nationwide. And senior aviation reporter Sean Cudahy is with us right now. He is from the travel website, the Points Guy. He's here to offer some suggestions for travelers. Sean, why don't you start by explaining how we got here and what the situation is right now?
Yeah, Kelly, we've kind of seen sort of a snowball here. I mean, going into this government shutdown, I think it was well publicized. I mean, there's already been a major shortage of air traffic controllers, and now you've had these controllers going for weeks on end here, working without a paycheck. And keep in mind, these aren't just like ordinary jobs. I mean, these are very stressful, high-intensity jobs. They work 6-day weeks, 10-hour days, mandatory overtime. For months on end, and now you've asked them to continue working without pay here, and you've seen some of them just have not been able to continue coming to work. You've heard about controllers having to take second jobs, and it's really just kind of had this snowball effect on our aviation system. And this week you saw a fairly unprecedented move by the Federal Aviation Administration to cut back on 10% of flights at dozens of the biggest airports across the country, including all 3 of the major airports here in the D.C. region.
Yeah, and we saw that DCA was primarily the airport most affected around the world. What are you seeing today?
Yeah, really messy last night at DCA. Despite pulling back on the amount of planes that are in the air with some of these cancellations that began yesterday, the delays continued to pile up. DCA was actually the worst airport in the country last night. Today, kind of remains to be seen. It's sort of hit or miss each day. We're going to see, another 800 or so flight cancellations as expected. I can tell you this morning at this hour, Charlotte, key hub for American Airlines, which also has a hub at DCA, currently under a ground stop. So I think there's going to be more where that came from across the country today. And it's unfortunately going to be a messy weekend and a messy few days for air travel.
So we're seeing these changes, as you were mentioning, by the FAA being phased in, which means that this situation could get a lot worse. What are you expecting?
Yeah, so, this weekend, it's about, 4% or so of all flights that have been canceled. That's not, quelling the delays at all, though. We're still seeing those, and we're going to see a lot of those. And then by midweek, we're going to scale up to, by late next week, we'll be at about 10% of all flights that'll be pulled out of the schedule. So, that'll be a massive impact. And I think all travelers, airlines, certainly, kind of watching Congress to see if somehow, they can reach a deal, get the government back open, and hopefully, get these flights back on track.
And when you think of the fact that the Thanksgiving holiday is right around the corner, and we know that travel is going to increase for that, how horrible could this be?
I mean, I think if this continues into the Thanksgiving holiday, which we should point out, 2 weeks from yesterday, that Friday before Thanksgiving, airlines really see as kind of the unofficial start of the Thanksgiving travel rush. This could definitely be a messy, holiday at airports. You've heard the head of the nation's top air traffic controllers union say very publicly that, it's hard to even imagine how bad the disruptions could be if this were to continue into the holiday. If these air traffic controllers, and let's not forget TSA officers as well, would be asked to go weeks more without pay here. I think that you would see, the FAA having to potentially scale back flights even more than the 10% that's planned. I think everybody's hoping at this point, we don't get there.
So what are your recommendations for travelers?
Yeah, stay in touch with your airline. Make sure the airline has a direct line of communication to you. If you booked your ticket directly with your airline, they probably have your email and phone number. Also, make sure you have the airline's app, the mobile app downloaded, and opt into the push notifications. My favorite way to just, get my trip back on track when a flight gets canceled is just to go right into the app and rebook myself. A lot of times you don't even have to bother waiting on hold for a long time with the airline. We know that can just be such a pain when you have to do that. And then also, if you're booking travel here for the coming days, if you have a work trip or a personal trip somewhere you have to be, I would avoid, if at all possible, flights with connections. If you think about it, if you're taking a flight, connecting at a hub, and then taking a second flight to your destination, you're basically doubling the chances of your flight getting canceled. Obviously, can't always avoid that. I would opt for the longer layover.
What do people need to know about refunds? It's my understanding that they are getting refunds for cancellations, but not for secondary costs like hotel stays.
Correct. So under U.S. Department of Transportation policy, and this is always, by the way, if your flight is canceled or significantly delayed and you decide, you know what, I'm just going to stay home, I'm not going to take this trip, I'm going to, maybe take a train or drive, you would be owed a refund. No questions asked. You're supposed to get it within 7 days, by the way, if you paid by credit card. We are also seeing during this shutdowns, a number of airlines are actually kind of loosening their refund rules, making them a little bit more lax here. So some airlines like United, for example, is basically telling travelers that, you know what, even if your flight isn't affected, if you're just looking at this situation saying, I don't want to fly right now, you can cancel your trip and get a refund, no questions asked. But now, to your point, secondary costs, sometimes when there's a maintenance delay or staffing on the part of the airline causes your itinerary to go off the rails, you'll see the airline pick up the tab for your hotel, your taxi, if you get stranded somewhere. That, unfortunately, is not going to happen because this technically is not the airline's fault.
All right, well, we appreciate you breaking that down for us. That is Sean Cudahy. He is senior aviation reporter with Points Guy. And again, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Travelers are now turning to car rentals to get to their destinations. Hertz reports that one-way rental reservations have spiked more than 20% over the past 2 days. And travelers are also hitting the railways to get around the travel chaos. We spoke to one traveler who had their flight canceled in D.C. and needed to take an Amtrak to New York just to get home to Germany.
Yeah, I'm annoyed, of course. Originally, I wanted to go to the airport to just see if there are any other planes available, but then I decided to take this Amtrak because otherwise it would be like 11:30 in New York, and so this one's quite okay.